All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel. I try to take you off the beaten path and hook you up with some food for thought, giving you some things that you probably don't know anything about. Mostly great theories of everything, all-encompassing theories, grand unified theories, cosmologies, and also tour de forces, magnum opuses, and earth-shattering discoveries from out-of-the-way obscure sources. And we hope that this will help you with your paradigm shifting, your awakening to 5D consciousness, your formation of a holistic worldview, your quest for better spiritual, mental, and physical health. Today is our 242nd video on the Reciprocal Church, named in honor of Dewey B. Larson, author of what I think is the greatest theory of everything that's out there, the reciprocal system of theory, which I have about 585 videos on, if you want to check that out. And Larson unifies all of science, and then he unifies science with religion. And we think that's a good starting point. To build on syncretism, putting together our own spiritual resources that we can use in our own lives, because the major religions out there are not to be trusted, not only in terms of the holy men and women out there that are preaching, but also especially in terms of their scriptures. And so today we're looking at a decode of the New Testament from Michael Menescotz, Menesgotz. He's got a new book that's called The Origins of Christianity. Yeah, that's it. The Origins of Christianity as a Flavian Secrecy Cult. And he, like many, many other scholars, is now saying that the New Testament was written by the Romans. It was a psychological operation, a piece of wartime propaganda. The Romans were fighting against the Jews on a pretty much a nonstop basis, all the way from the BC era all the way through the into the early 2nd century, 135. But the biggest war was the Jewish War from 66 to 73 AD, where the Temple of Jerusalem was sacked and plundered, and according to estimates, like 1 million Jews were killed. They call it the worst thing that happened to the Jews since until the Holocaust. Of whatever you think of that. But they point to the work of Josephus. Josephus is known as the historian who wrote the book called War of the Jews, which is about this war, and also that he is the only 1st century author to actually corroborate the existence of Jesus. But when you realize who Josephus actually is, you realize that that doesn't hold any weight, because Josephus was, at that time, a Roman. He was a member of the a member of the Roman royal family, adopted by Emperor Vespasian and brought to Rome, living at Rome, and in one of the king's apartments there for the court. And he was the court historian for Vespasian and Titus, the Flavian emperors from 69 until 96 AD. Titus and Vespasian were the generals, and then eventually both became emperors. They were father and son. And Josephus, if you read Wars of the Jews, you will discover that there are numerous legion, practically parallels, between Wars of the Jews and the New Testament. And they parody each other, they work off each other, they were clearly written by the same person or people at the same time, because they're basically in a conversation with one another. And Menescot breaks this down by plotting the points. He puts the book of Luke on the vertical axis and the Jewish War by Josephus on the horizontal axis. The book of Luke has 24 chapters. Jewish War has 694 paragraphs. And so when he finds a parallel, he plots that point, just puts a dot there. And he found an astounding 250 or so parallels between the book of Luke and Jewish War. That's just one book of the Bible, of the New Testament. That's like 15 per page, something like that. And he goes over them in painstaking detail and shows you these parallels one at a time. And some of them are very obvious. Some of them are kind of weak, frankly. Some of them are really intricate, and some of them are incredibly well hidden, where it's like they're there, like there are two passages that are a paragraph long, and there are like 6 different things that are parallel between the two. But if you read them together, you still wouldn't notice it. You have to like actually analyze it before you start figuring it out. And there's a lot of code words that you have to know, and that's kind of the general idea. If you were with me when I was reading over my book here on this channel, which is about jazz musicians in Chicago, the main topic is a guy named Sun Ra, band leader, and I'm actually wearing a Sun Ra t-shirt right now. But he had a quest that he believed that he needed to solve the most difficult problem on the planet, and that was the true meaning of the Bible. And he said, I found out what the true meaning of the Bible was, and it is not a good truth. I found out the truth, and it is a bad truth. And he said, the Bible is not a good book. The Bible is a code book. G and C are, interchangeable in ancient languages. And so the Bible is a code book, not a good book. And you need to understand how to break the code. And so that's what we're working on here. This is just one of many different lenses that we're going to use to try to break the code. But this is a very powerful one because it shows many different parallels, and it also shows that if you graph it out, it also reveals a code. So that's what happens when you do graph this out. It's 5 Latin letters, APTVS. And he's also trying to figure out what that means. So let's start here. We're on the 4th or 5th chapter, and we're about to start up kind of a new set of parallels. I think the reason that there is a horizontal line, which seems to be an anomaly between the T and the V. Okay, so we're getting into the anomalies. That the T and the V, now if you look at the thumbnail, you'll see that the V has a few kind of stray dots hanging out to the left of the V. And he superimposes those up to the top because they are all linked. So the bottom is the beginning of Luke, and the top is really the end of Luke, Luke 23 and 24. And all of those dots that he has down there at the bottom, again, this is on the thumbnail. If you want to take a look at the thumbnail for the video, the APTVS pattern is on there. And he moves up the V's, the stuff at the left-hand part of the V, all the way up to the top. And what it does is it fills in the T to a certain extent, and fills in the left-hand side of the V up at the top a little bit. Uh, and he explained why he did that before, but I think he might be doing that again now. I think the reason there's a horizontal line, which seems to be an anomaly between the T and the V, might be historical. That is, perhaps initially the plan was simple, to present the stories in order, and only later was a decision made that they should present a VS when plotted, with another 3 letters later added in the second version of Jewish War. So he thinks that the V and the S were originally there, and that is, I'd say, in harmony, because Wars of the Jews is 7 books long, and really it's supposed to cover the Wars of the Jews, which starts in 66 AD, but the book itself starts in like 150 BC. So those first 3 books are really just kind of background information, and you don't get to the meat of the story till you get to the V and the S. So it's quite possible that the V and the S were originally written, and then they put in the A, P, and the T later, and just, change the numbering of the books. And there were 2 versions. There was supposed to be an original version, and he said that it was written in the father tongue, which people have suggested is Chaldee, which is kind of an Eastern Semitic language. The second version is in Greek, just like the Gospels are. Okay, so with another 3 letters later added in the second version of Jewish War. One more parenthetical, just I didn't mention that the reason why the Romans did this is because the Jews, they were fighting constant wars against the Jews, and they wanted to mellow out or tame or domesticate or prune the Jews. And so they wanted to propose a Jewish hero who was a prince of peace, one who believed in turning the other cheek and rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to walk an extra mile with the soldier's backpack, and to call the Roman centurion slave owner the greatest faith in all of Israel. If you really pay attention to the Gospels, you will see that they are totally pro-Roman and totally anti-Jew. Everything that Jesus rebels against, he's rebelling against the Jews and not the Romans. Same with Paul. But the Paul is a little bit different because it was the Gospels are targeted toward the Jews, to try to mellow out the Jews. When they wrote the epistles of Paul, which scholars think that they came earlier, but they really came later, and they were written to target the Gentiles, to target the soldiers and the slaves and other commoners, to also tame them. Because the Romans, they wanted you to be a good citizen. They wanted you to be a good person, and they wanted you to be a prince of peace, because then you would be very easy to administer this giant empire that they had. They can't be putting out little insurrections all over the place all the time. Okay, and so they used, psychological warfare more effectively than actual warfare, and they were really good at the actual warfare part. But psychological warfare they were on another level with that. And they did the same thing with with the Pharisaic kind of Jews as well. This is targeted more toward the zealot kind of Jews, I think. But the Pharisees, they got under Johanan ben Zakkai as opposed to Josephus. They were given this land grant to start a Jewish college or campus, and to start working on the Talmud. And that was all under Roman auspices. So they Christianity wasn't the only religion that the Romans created. They created several. So again, they had the motive, they had the means, they had the opportunity, and they definitely had the method. Okay, since it was still necessary to present a large sequence of parallels between Titus and Jesus, all in much the same order, this original line was not removed. So he keeps a line in here on this different picture, but we're going to move down here, further down the page, and there are two possibilities for how this inconsistency would be addressed. One possibility is that it was not considered a problem. One linear sequence would be revealed to show that Titus was Jesus' second coming. And that's a recurring theme, is that things that Jesus predicts are going to happen in the Gospels are fulfilled by Titus in the War of the Jews. And they are also where Jesus predicts those things. At that same location, Titus fulfills those things 40 years later. So if Jesus is at the Sea of Galilee, then you go to where Titus is at the Sea of Galilee and look for the parallel. And that's the way that one of the ways that you're going to be able to uncover these. Okay, and a completely separate set of parallels would be revealed to show via the APTVS pattern and the opposing mutual parities that the documents could only have been written together by the Flavian government, because it's known that the Flavian government wrote Josephus, and so if they are paralleling each other, then it is obvious that the Gospels are also by Josephus. Now we have to figure out who Josephus is, but we know that he was living at Rome, and he was a member of the Flavian royal family, an adopted member of the Flavian royal family. So he was a voice of Rome. He wasn't a historian. He wasn't a theologian. He was a voice of propaganda. Everything he said had to be approved by Caesar, either Titus or Vespasian. Another possibility is that those inducted to the senior grade would be told that there is a message in Luke 24 which indicates that those parallels relating to Galilee should be remembered there, remembered in quotes, meaning the whole group should be moved up to the top of the chart. Because in Luke 24 it says those parallels relating to Galilee should be remembered there. Apparently that's what Luke 24 says. I'll have to take a look at that. This approach is illustrated where the parallels are pictured as stars, which is probably the effect that was intended, because the Romans were very much into astrology and the zodiac and astronomy too. It's also been mentioned that the person who's writing as Josephus also may have been writing as Claudius Ptolemy from the Egyptian Greek, who was a famous astronomer who was big on the geocentric theory. And even though he was a couple hundred years before this event of the Gospels, this guy Arius Piso, who was kind of a background character to the Caesars, he did that for several other authors as well, backdated, and then he would write a few lines that indicated some of his other books from the future. So it looked like he did that with the New Old Testament as well. They say he wrote like Isaiah 54 which predicts something that Jesus does in the New Testament. So he went back and like edited the New Testament to write Jesus into the Old Testament because he had that kind of power. The Romans had a monopoly on publishing, on anything that was written. There was nothing that was written in the first century that wasn't under Roman auspices. And so just by definition, the Gospels are by the Romans. There is no way that anybody else would have been able to write them. Okay, I also realize that the reader might comment that if the author had the ability to arrange the parallels in precise lines, then why didn't they? The lines are pretty precise. I mean, you know, the lines are all pretty straight. It was just that there's that one anomaly over on the V. I think the answer to this is twofold. Firstly, if they were in perfect lines, they would be much easier to find. Merely by observing two nearby parallels, it would be possible to extrapolate to find the next, and so on. But secondly, I think the goal was to present an image that would evoke a constellation, like a constellation of stars, as if to say all the stars decided to arrange themselves into the shape of this divine God's name. And again, that was part of their propaganda. This was like a carnival. These people are like carnival barkers. They are showmen, and the Gospels were written as plays. They performed them out in public. The vast majority of the public did not know how to read, and much less they didn't know how to read Greek in Palestine. I mean, the only Jews who really know how to read Greek were the ones who were well-to-do. The poor Jews, they spoke Aramaic, and they didn't speak Greek. Most of the commoners in Rome throughout the empire spoke Greek, and Latin was kind of the language of the royals. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, these letters that are written as this constellation, this APTVS, which may be a U actually, that's in Latin. So this is not intended for the masses. This is intended for the royals to be able to see this because it's in Latin. But perhaps amazingly, I still haven't finished showing the sequence of parallels between the stories of Titus and Jesus. It just keeps going. We've been doing this for, 3 weeks or something. So it doesn't just keep going. Just these parallels between Titus and Jesus, and that's only one set of the parallels. It just keeps going, and so I will resume that task now. Okay, so we got to flip the page. Hopefully that goes without a hitch. Not so much. Okay. For some reason, I have to take pictures of these pages to get them to appear on my computer screen, but for some reason, the pictures that I took today are coming in on the screen sideways, and there's no way to straighten them out. For some reason, the page 46 is straight and page 47 is sideways. One more chance here. That is page 47, so maybe if I just get out of the screen here and read sideways, then we can finish this. This is a joke, but I don't understand what my phone is doing, but this is the story of my life, pretty much. I haven't been able to get up to competency level on technology, and as a result, I've paid the price for my whole life. Okay, I will come back to this later and only mention just one of these hints here. This hint is found in Luke chapter 9, verse 62, where now he got another clue from Luke 10, and that was to plot the points. But in Luke 9:62 it says, "He who pushes the plow and looks behind is not fit for the kingdom of God." For the word behind, the original Greek text uses the word opiso, O-P-I-S-O, which can be deconstructed into two words, o and piso, which in Greek mean the and piso, therefore referencing the piso. Certainly, piso. Certainly, there are other words that contain shorter words, but it is probably rare that shorter words would relate to a famous aspect of Roman royalty. This only becomes impressive if I show the rest of the related hints together, and I mention it instead because I will need to come back to it shortly. Okay, I'm not enamored with the way that he has this organized. I'm obviously not enamored with having to read it sideways, but we're getting toward the end of the video, and I'm certainly not going to record this over again because it's already 2:30 in the morning. Okay, their position is that the Flavians authorized this Arius Piso, thought to be a cousin of Titus, to write the Gospels, and that's why he is important enough to have his name enshrined in the Gospels. His name comes up in the book of Revelation like half a dozen times. Using the character named Aegon Pneuma, P-N-E-U-M-A, like pneumonia, which is the Holy Ghost. So in fairness to this theory, it is indisputable that the royal Piso family were incredibly powerful at that time. The simplest illustration of this is that one of the Pisos was named heir to the throne by Emperor Galba a mere 6 years before that. 6 months before the first legion in Judea declared for Emperor Vespasian as emperor. To overcome the difficulty that there is no surviving record of any Piso called Arius near this time, Roman has, he's now referring to Roman Piso, which is a pseudonym of a 20th and 21st century author who claims to have descent from the Piso family and, to be a whistleblower, so to speak, to say the Pisos still have control of the whole world. He's got articles that, all of these different people throughout history have been directly related to the Arius Piso, including every one of the popes and every one of the Roman emperors. And it goes down to King James, and it goes down to Hillary Clinton and to Barack Obama and Donald Trump. All three of them have Arius Piso in their genealogy that he does. So, he shows this work, but, I'm just not a good enough genealogist to actually break it down. And, it's like 50 generations or, 100 generations down, so ultimately, your those numbers multiply very, very fast. And, if you're a powerful person, you might end up in millions of people's genealogies. Now, if it's like direct, that's a little bit different. But, you know, these are all bloodlines, and certainly a lot of the Illuminati or the powers that be or whoever, they certainly put a lot of stock in the bloodlines. And so Roman Pisos does a great deal of work doing genealogical studies, but a lot of the stuff that he does is also for the purpose of figuring out the royal language, because these royals, they write to each other and they use a ton of different aliases. It's like they're purposely trying to cover their tracks, and they all use this ancestor worship. So, the fact that if you are related to some famous person in the past, then they feel like you have the right to use that person's name in your name. And so, Arius Piso has several different names. And then he's got dozens of different aliases. So he's but he never uses his real name. So it's almost impossible to track him in history. Like, some people think that he didn't ever exist because his name doesn't show up anywhere. You have to figure out through the genealogical research and also the letters that they wrote back and forth between each other to figure out who's who and what's what. But it turns out that, like, every single one of those characters in the Bible that just kind of has a random name, just kind of like an extra in the Bible. Those are mostly all like royal people, like either from the Herod family, who is the puppet kings of Judea, who are also Roman and Greek, in their orientation, or like an actual Roman royalty. So, those random characters that show up in the New Testament are not random. There's nothing random in the Gospels. Okay, hopefully I'll figure out how to turn my screen up right next time, and we'll get into it later. Thanks for tuning in.